Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I'm joined by my friend Nat Bullen, and I'm so excited to welcome her to the show to continue our series on revenue to returns, or as we've also called it, how my money makes me money outside of your main business. And this conversation is one I've been looking forward to for months, honestly, since I first approached Nat with this idea, because I think stock market investing is something that, we've all heard of at some point, right? It's kind of commonplace or a common investment vehicle. But I also think that a lot of people still, are either afraid of approaching this or maybe don't place as much priority on it because they reinvest all of their profits back into their own business. And Nat and I are just going to have a really candid conversation on how being able to diversify and ensure that you have a way to produce income outside of your main business, especially when life throws immense hurdles your way is really essential. So, anyways, I think this conversation is going to be super super helpful for every person listening in. Nat, thank you for joining us.
Really excited about it. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And just a quick intro to those of you who don't know Nat. Nat is a coach, investor, and owner of Unapologetic Wealth. She helps women in business make more money and create wealth. She's honestly one of my all time favorite. I don't know if calling you a creator would be the right word. Nat, I don't even
No,
know if you identify
I
that
don't
way,
do
but
creator and I don't do influencer. You got to
yes,
do something else.
maybe thought leader.
Okay.
Someone who writes really thought provoking content. Honestly, one of the few people that I follow on Facebook that I genuinely stop and read every piece of content because I just think it makes me
Thank
think
you.
differently. So highly recommend you go into her world. But now let's talk about before we even get into like the whole investment thesis, how you're thinking about investing in stocks and the nitty gritty of that. I think we need to kind of look at the bigger picture of like, A, what got you started in investing in the stock market in the first place? What age were you? Was this even before your business that you
Oh,
started doing this?
yeah. That's a
Okay.
good question.
Yeah, let's start with the
I
inception.
want someone to hear this. This is important. I was 18 and I worked at Cracker Barrel and I made $2.13 an
Oh my
hour
gosh.
waiting tables, and I made $5.65 an hour when I was a prep cook, and I made $7.15 an hour when I was a cook in the back. So if you've ever ordered fried steak, a salad from Cracker Barrel, I made it. I made baked the pies, I baked baked potatoes. That was me. 18, I was in the stock market and my account was teeny tiny. I worked there for 5 years and they probably never had $1,000 in it, but it got me accustomed to having money set aside that wasn't being spent right now.
Mm,
Because my grandfather was born in 1925. Rest in peace, John Henry. So was his wife, Alma. And they were so tight. And all they talked about was having money for a rainy day. And when you lived through the Great Depression, you've seen the rainy day. So it
yeah.
was always taught to me, in addition to having savings, you need to have something working on your behalf. So some of your money is to spend, but some of it is to save, some of it is to invest, and then some of it is to have frills in life, right? So I said, you know what? If somebody born in 1925, in the height of racism, one generation out of slavery,
Yeah.
can save certainly I can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly I can. So I started really young, and like I didn't do everything right when I lost my job and had to move. I cashed it out, like I took my nest egg and did something with it. But by my next job, I think I was at Direct TV, I was actually able to keep that money. So when I worked at Verizon, I just rolled it over. And when I went from Verizon to Wells Fargo, I rolled it over. And when I went from Wells Fargo to being self-employed, I rolled it over. So I didn't start entrepreneurship with $0 in retirement like so many people that I meet, or $0 in brokerage. I also didn't have this deep rooted fear that I was going to lose everything because I had been putting incremental teeny tiny pieces in every job that I've ever had. So I think I had become acclimated to it by the time I got in business, and I think it got popular.
That's very powerful. And I didn't invest quite as young as you, but I think the first time I made any sort of deposit into the stock market, I was probably, oh gosh, it was either 22, maybe slightly before then, but same thing. Like it's something that is a practice, right? It is truly a habit And I think a lot of people kind of overlook that piece. It is something that you play for the long term, not just, like an overnight get rich quick type of scheme.
Oh, tell people, tell everybody. For
Yeah.
some reason, investing has gotten mixed up with day trading and
Yeah.
options and futures. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things, but those are not the same as investing in the stock market. That
Mhm.
in itself is a long term thing. It is capital appreciation. Just like when you buy a house, you've never bought a house in January and thought you were going to sell it in February and make a lot of money. No one does that. So why do people think they're going to buy a stock in January and it's going to quadruple in February? It's very weird. Like think of the stock market like buying a real piece of real estate.
Mhm.
However long you think you need to live in your house to have equity, that's how long you need to be thinking about having a stock before you have cash from it.
Yeah.
And most of the fear is fear of complicated vessels. Because I don't spend 10 minutes a month looking at my account. I don't know what I'm looking at. It does its own thing. That's the blessing. I don't have to look at. I just spend all my time looking at my business that I run. That's my time suck. It's not the stock market. So, I think that needs to be said. A, this doesn't have to be get rich quick. I'm 38. I know Ellen's younger than I am, but like we have decades until traditional retirement. We have decades before we can even apply for Social Security. What is the rush? Like, why does the stock market have to make us rich in the next 2 to 5 years? Like that to me is the impetus. It's the same with growing a business. I won't take you on as a client if you're trying to quadruple your business this year, because that's not logical unless
Mhm.
some very specific things have happened that you've already been planning for. Slow growth is usually more attainable
Mhm.
and it helps your nervous system, and it's also better for your taxes and stuff. Like when you grow too fast, sometimes you can miss some key financial steps that would have saved you money had you grown at a normal pace. So like don't be thinking about the stock market as like a blank check that you're just going to write a dollar amount on. It is another vessel for you to grow wealth long term. Even if you are already 40 or 50 years old, you still have a decade of horizon for your money to grow.
Absolutely. And one of my favorite actually visuals that my wealth advisor, Caitlin, gave me that I still just love bringing forward to mine, and this might be helpful to some of our listeners, is she always talks about how, people like to watch the ups and downs of the stock market and react, poorly or, otherwise just very reactionary to whatever's happening in the ups and downs. And she was like, that's like watching someone climb up a mountain and you're watching their yo-yo. She was like, you don't need to look at their yo-yo, look
Mm,
at the mountain. She's like, over the history of, 200 years, the stock
right.
market is going up and to the right over that course of time. But
Absolutely.
if you're obsessed with watching the yo-yo, then you're gonna make all sorts of poor decisions in reaction to the minutia of day to day, week to week,
That's
even
true.
year to year.
But people do this in other areas. They do it in their
Yeah.
business, they do it in their marriage, they do it with stuff like hair care. But people think, oh, there was a dip. I have to do something. That's with anything, right? Like
Yeah.
Unapologetic Wealth has had a dip, but we've also been in a pivot. My dad has died. So,
Mm,
like, if I did some knee jerk, drastic reaction based on a temporary dip, I would probably make the wrong decision. That's not to say ignore if your revenue drops for 3 consecutive years, do nothing. But if it's been a couple of weeks, if you have a leader of the United States who says things purposely to manipulate the market, well, no, you can't be paying attention to every head. Like you'll drive yourself crazy. And I don't know about you, Ellen, but like I'm busy.
yeah.
Busier than I would like to be, frankly. I am busy. I got out of finance, so I don't have to watch the chart all day. Like I do not want to be awake. I was awake 8 minutes before this podcast started. Like I have no interest in watching the market. I don't want to be up for the opening bell. Like I'm over it. So like just know you don't have to be like a stock guru. You don't have to be Warren Buffett. You're not going to beat the analyst. The analyzing is already being done.
Mhm.
Choose something that you feel confident with and move on. You got a closet full of clothes that are good enough. You wear them and you go out into the world. They might not be perfect or Mariah Carey level. They might not be expertly tailored, but you put them on your body and you go outside. You don't go outside thinking, man, maybe I need to go back in and look through my closet again. You leave. That's how you got to think about your stocks. You bought them, they're good enough, and they're going to get you through what you need to get through. And if there is really an issue, which I've only sold one stock in my life, everything I've ever bought, I've kept except for one company, the duds will come to rise. You don't have to watch them all the time. It's like a bad relationship. You'll figure it out even if you don't watch it all the time.
Yes, and I think that's such an encouraging word. And again, for those of you listening in, right, this case study is kind of more a look into what Nat has done in her own life, how she's divested money away from her main business or the profits from her main business and used it to build wealth in a different investment vehicle. So if you're looking for, a full breakdown of how do I invest, an investment 101, this isn't the episode, but my hope is that all of you listening in at the end of this episode, you will have gained a new perspective on how this can be a very viable vehicle for multiplying your money and why it matters, especially what Nat brought up just a moment ago. We'll get to that. We'll circle back to it later in this episode around, what she's currently going through, grieving the loss of her dad and how having a backup plan that doesn't rely on active business income has really been such a saving grace during this time period. And so, again, we'll get to that in just a moment. But if we just look at your overall, maybe we'll just start with the basics, Nat, with your overall stock portfolio.
Mhm.
Tell us about all the different accounts you have. I'm assuming you have, like, for example, like what retirement accounts do you have?
Mhm.
What taxable accounts, brokerage accounts do you have? Let's just give the quick high level lay of the land.
Okay. First things first, as a person who used to be licensed with FINRA, I have to let you all know that this is not me giving you stock market advice.
Yes.
I have been a financial advisor. I am not your financial advisor. This is anecdotal advice, and you want to talk to your professional first. I'm really simple. I have a SEP IRA. For people who may not be familiar, it's a self-employed pension plan, which has limits that are higher than traditional and Roth IRAs. I still have a traditional IRA, even though most years we don't contribute to it, but it has money in it that I'm just not ready to convert and do a Roth conversion. We have a Roth IRA, which is our after tax retirement. And then I have one brokerage account. That's it. We have simplified. Over the years, we've had company 401k, we've had company brokerage accounts, but frankly, I want to be rich. I don't need to make my company show more assets and make our tax situation more complicated. I'm trying to pull the profit off of my company to put it in my personal bank account and through payroll and of course to fund my retirement.
I love how simple you keep it, and I actually concur, Nat. For anyone curious, I also really only have basically 3 main accounts. My husband and I share a taxable brokerage account, so that's, a non-retirement account. Again, if you're not familiar with these terms, the purpose of this episode is just to widen your perspective. So jot down these names and ask your financial advisor to explain these to you. So we have a taxable brokerage account. My company, as in Cubicle, the CEO, has a 401k plan
Yep.
that we've instilled, and so I do
Yeah,
contribute
we
to
did.
that. That's a
Hmm.
retirement account, and that's my individual account, and then we also have Roth IRAs. My husband and I have individual Roth IRAs that we can contribute. There's once you reach certain, like, income levels, there's all sorts of, like, backdoor paths to how much
Right.
you can contribute in different accounts, and again, this is not an investment class, so we're not gonna go over
Right.
those, but
Yeah.
anything that strikes your
Not today.
curiosity. Yeah, not
I'm like,
today.
I have a class later, not
Yeah.
today, but
Oh,
just for
yes.
people listening, yeah, I've got a
Yeah,
stock market class, but you cannot contribute to a SEP IRA and a company 401k in the same year. So you'll
correct.
notice that she is talking about a 401k and not a SEP, and I'm talking about a SEP and not a
Mhm,
401k. There's strategic reasons for that, and having a really great accountant,
mhm.
having a really good financial strategist so that you don't inadvertently step on the toes of the IRS is super important as your business
So
starts making
important.
more money. The big thing I want you thinking about now is that your retirement, your social security is based on your 40 highest earning quarters. And if you are in entrepreneurship and you are not showing income and you are not showing profit and you are not putting anything in your retirement, you could end up one of those people that's 70 years old getting $400 a month, right? Like, I don't want you to be in that position. So, what you want to be thinking about now is how do I make sure that my personal net worth is growing alongside my business, alongside my side hustle, alongside my career, not just I'm making an income, how much of that is being kept and how much of that is being grown over time.
Mm. Oh, that's such a excellent point, and I'm so glad you brought that up, how, like, Social Security in the US works, and I didn't know about the 40 highest earning quarters, but I did know that you have to report a certain number of years of W-2
Yeah,
income to even qualify for Social Security, which when my husband, was, not working for a number of years, that was actually something we had to chat about with our advisor, like, "Hey,
yeah.
Has he already met the qualifications or do we need him to work more? And so, okay, you have 3 main accounts that you pour money into in the stock market. Out of your business profits, how are you looking at the allocation of money that you send to the stock market or to these accounts? Do you do this every month? Are you a believer of dollar cost averaging? And we can explain what that is for our
Yeah,
listeners real quick. But like, what's your cadence, I guess, of
I like that.
transferring
That's smart.
funds
Yeah.
to your accounts?
So my mom was a school teacher. My grandfather, John Henry, was a school teacher. His mother, Mary, was a school teacher. Mary's dad, Henry, was a school teacher, and Henry's father was a slave. So my entire family is school teachers, and they get paid once a month. So if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. I pay myself every month on the first. And I'm fully aware that I could pay myself every week or whatever cadence. I like once a month because my bills are due every month. So I have one payment, one bill. Look at that.
Mm,
I don't have to be bothered with it all the rest of the month. I love, love, love that. And so for the most part, my investing at present, because our business doesn't have as much profit as it's had in certain years, is coming out of my owner's pay.
mhm,
So when we had an S corp, my owner's pay was running through payroll with Gusto, and a portion of that was going into our company 401k. Now I make sure that I have enough to meet whatever the limit is for a Roth IRA every year. So
gotcha.
whatever Roth is, I can't remember, is it 7,500 or 8,000 this year? There's a limit, listener, and that limit changes periodically, usually every year in a small way. And if you're over 50, you can put an additional catch-up contribution. And then in terms of SEP only works if you have profit at the end of the year. So that's a tax planning situation where at the end of the year, we look to see how much profit we had. So I believe you can put 25% of the profit that you had or the owner's pay. And so on a good year, if we've got $100,000 in profit, well, that's great because that means a big lump can get
Mhm,
put into Natalie's retirement without me having to really do anything. Just quick call to Fidelity and fill out a form and make the change. On years where there's not so much profit, that's okay because I've been taking stuff out of my monthly payment anyway to make sure that my retirement was funded and anything over that goes into that taxable brokerage account. So the SEP at the end of the year is icing on the cake for a good
yeah,
year, but there was still money that was getting allocated. I used to be a dollar cost averager. I really am a fan of that, putting the same amount of money. Now I'm kind of DCA plus. So I'm going to do the average, but then I put money in the stock market when my business gets on my nerves, when people fangirl, when people do stupid parasocial stuff, when my husband gets on my nerves, when I think about moving to Italy. So it's kind of like people have a swear jar. I have like a stock jar. So anytime any little inconvenience happens in my life and I'm like, F everybody,
yeah.
I put money. So I'm like DCA plus. I'm like dollar cost averaging plus any little inconvenience that might particularly happen in my
Mm,
life or like to kind of offset. And so for you all listening, I did not grow up rich. The highest salary I've ever made in corporate was 51,000. That's with an MBA. That was with securities licenses. So unfortunately, I've just never been able to crack the corporate nut. It just has never really worked out for me. But I've liked doing things in increments. When I had a lot of credit card debt, I would make a payment. So let's say when I worked at Wells Fargo down the street, there was a Subway. And let's say I was going to spend $8.92 at Subway. Well, I would bring my lunch and then pay $8.92 on my credit card. And people are like, $8 is nothing. It is if you eat out 2 or 3 times a week. That's an extra like 50, $60 on that card on top of your minimum payment every month. And it's how I paid off all of my credit card debt when I was young.
that's
And so now
amazing.
this is kind of the same thing to me. It's like, what can you do? Like, I could get my lashes done. And it's like $100. Well, I could not do that. My husband wouldn't even notice. And then I could just put the $100 in the stock market. So I like to think about like a trade-off that I
Mm,
am making. And I like to tie my money up so I don't spend it. So I like to kind of lock my money up like, okay, now I got an IRS penalty if I touch this money. Like I need that. I need an IRS penalty to not overspend because I will YOLO and justify, especially now that my dad died. Please, please, I will YOLO anything. And like YOLO is not, I mean, you only live once, but you might live a long time. Like,
mm,
my family has the longevity gene. You have to fight to die before 80 in my family. That's scary as hell. That's scary as hell thinking I gotta make enough money to fund what could be a long my mom retired at 56. She's still alive. She's about to be 78,
yeah,
and, like, she's healthy, she's well, she drives. My mom could live 20 more years easy. Are you prepared to be retired 40 years? I'll
yeah.
admit that I was not thinking about being retired 40 years. So, like, you have to be thinking through, like,
To hear the rest of this episode and unlock weekly subscriber-only content and community access, join us as a premium subscriber at cubicletoceo.co/podcast. The link is below in our show notes.